This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
Joining us today is Rachel Kay, Chief Learning Officer at Learning People, a prominent global education provider specializing in tech and project management qualifications. Rachel delves into the unique approach to curating programs for the tech industry and project management, equipping individuals with professional qualifications for new careers. She discusses how current trends like AI are reshaping the workplace, emphasizing the vital role of critical and analytical thinking. So I'm really excited to have Rachel from Learning People here to join me on this episode of Leap Forward. Welcome, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really looking forward to it.
Why don't you, first of all, just sort of give us a bit of a kind of an overview, sort of your role and the business?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, my name is Rachel Kay, and my role at Learning People is Chief Learning Officer. So I'm responsible for our curriculum, making sure that our students have got the latest learning that are really going to help them get into new careers. So what Learning People does is we have taken sort of education programs and curated them together in order to help our students go and change their careers. So we have a really strong sort of corporate social responsibility agenda at Learning People. And we take people that may have been perhaps failed in education in their previous lives, who have identified that they're really interested in the tech industry. And we have curated these programs to help them gain professional qualifications, which then enables them to go and find their new career in tech. And we see this as a real advantage to people that may potentially have been failed in normal educational routes, and not because they didn't have the intelligence or the drive, but life just was different when they were studying. We put together these programs. So we operate in the UK, Australia and New Zealand. We have around about 40,000 students worldwide.
Wow.
And our average age of our students is between 25 and 50, and round about 15 years in operation. So this is not a new business. This has been going for a long time. And I'm responsible for the curriculum and for all of our student care as well. So my teams look after our students through their learning journey. So we are hopefully producing new talent in terms of career changes to go into industry and do great things.
That's amazing. What a great role you have, and what a great purpose and a mission. Like, tell me a little bit about sort of like the impact of some of those stories.
I'll probably give you a couple of examples. So if I give you a typical journey of one of our students. So there was one particular guy who left school, didn't quite know what he was going to do. Someone said, "Do you want to come and help in my gardening business?" So this somebody then through their 20s is running a gardening business. Yep, having a fine time. As he was coming into his probably mid to late 20s, he decided to have a family and was starting to think, gosh, am I really going to be doing this for the next 30 years? And actually wanted a little bit more out of life, and particularly to increase his earning capacity as well. So he retrained with us. So he took some cyber security qualifications. All of our study is self-study. And our students are typically working a full-time job, looking after a family, and perhaps studying in the weekends and the evenings. And our learning is really flexible, and it allows you to fit in with the rest of life. So this particular student got his qualifications. It took him probably just under a year. And then our team then help our students find jobs. So we get them career ready. We help with their CV. We look at LinkedIn. We look at target industries that somebody may be interested in. And this particular student was interested in working with police service. So he's now a SOC analyst for Sussex and Surrey Police. So working way more regular hours. His earning capacity is increased considerably. So that's probably just an example of a typical student that would come to us. But on the flip side, we also have students that may decide that university is not the right route for them. So this is somebody that's perhaps finished their A-levels or had enough of education at that point, may have taken a bit of a career break in terms of perhaps a year out, and then come back to study because they want to go into a particular profession, so perhaps into the IT sector, project management sector, and they will then come and study through us as well. So this is somebody that doesn't want to end up with 40, 50,000 pounds worth of debt once they've qualified. They want really practical certifications and qualifications that will help them get a job. So they will come and study with us as well. So that student probably is a different age demographic, but they get their qualifications probably by working a part-time job. They might do their studies a little bit quicker because there's not as many things in life that will get in the way of them taking time to study. So we had one guy that had actually done some further education, came to do some studying with us, and then his first job was in the Royal Household in London. So we helped him get that job, prepare him for interview. So he sort of really bypassed those 3 years of university and all the debt that comes. All of our students self-fund their learning, so that's tough. Yeah, so it means that they're paying for it as they go, and perhaps some of them may use loans to do that. But what it does mean is these people come with real drive. And we think when we place them with our partner employers, is that they, are people that really want to get on and get into the job. So their attitude and their resilience and their drive is pretty strong.
Let's just talk about you for a bit. So, obviously, Chief Learning Officer now. How did you become a Chief Learning Officer? Give me the kind of plotted career journey today.
Yeah, well, certainly when I was a little girl, I didn't dream of becoming a chief learning officer. I wanted to be a ballet dancer. So when that clearly didn't work, I worked overseas for a tour operator. I didn't go to university. And I went to work overseas, went to work for a tour operator, and actually worked my way throughout working in that sector, in the travel sector, for around about 6 years. And I worked over Europe, some other sort of far-flung places. And that was a bit of university of life. I came back and I sort of fell into the training world. I worked a little bit still in that training sector for the travel industry. And then I landed up getting a job as a management trainer in a defense organization. And 20 years later, I was still there. And I worked my way up from being one of their management trainers right up to the general manager of that business. So I fell into corporate education really through a training background. Through that time, when I was working for the defence contractor, I did go back to my own studies. So I did a postgraduate degree and got some formal qualifications behind me, which worked for me. So I feel the pain some of our students have at the moment, actually, because I did that whilst working a full-time job. And then I've just worked my way up, really. I worked for Capita, who are a large government contractor, running part of their training services division, and worked on some really exciting contracts. So one particularly that comes to mind is a contract that Capita won for shore-based training for the Royal Navy. So that was particularly interesting. And my background in defence and technical engineering really came into play. And then I did some work in the apprenticeship sector as Chief Learning Officer, and then obviously came into learning people. So, and all the time, actually, it was people that sort of called me up and said, "You've worked for me before. I've got this really exciting role." So actually my career has been very much using my network and I guess doing a good job, and then people saying, "Actually, would you like to come and do a little bit more?" And I also do 2 non-executive roles as well. So I was a non-executive director for the BCS for 6 years, and I'm currently a non-exec on the quality board for Impact Futures, which is a really super smart apprenticeship business. So whilst bringing up 2 kids, and I was a school governor as well at one point. So if you want something done, ask a busy lady. She'll get it done.
That's a great thing to live by. Absolutely agree. So let's sort of look at the kind of the landscape as it is today, and sort of perhaps just kind of give me a sense of kind of how it's changing. What are the kind of critical kind of challenges and sort of opportunities that exist.
Yeah. So if I look at the business at the moment, we're in the skills business. We're in careers. We're about getting people into jobs. And I think there's lots of exciting things that are giving us opportunity. So the impact of AI on ways of working, efficiencies in terms of how organizations are operating from a business point of view is giving us Lots of opportunities to ensure that our students, when they go into the workplace, are really ready for that new world of working. So we're having to ensure that our curriculum really talks to the AI piece. So additional new qualifications coming in this year that we're launching. There's a couple of certifications that our students will go on to take. And what we believe this does is really puts our students apart from other people perhaps applying for jobs. Whilst they won't be fully technical AI specialists, they'll understand how their jobs will align with AI. So that's something that we're focusing on. Another area, I guess, linked to the impact of advanced technologies is around just the importance of those power skills, soft skills, whatever you want. You probably hear them all the time when you talk to people, but we've had to make sure that we owe it to our students that not only are they technically qualified, but actually they know how to operate in a team, whether it's hybrid working from home, communication with the impact of AI and technology, critical thinking, analytical thinking. I think the World Economic Forum call out those two skills at the moment as the ones that industry needs to make sure it has in plenty. So our curriculum is very much being shaped by that. So that's very much around content. Other things that are on our mind at the moment is actually how we reach our students. So with advancements in marketing technologies and AI, looking at personas that would best suit our programs. So I look at our marketing team. We're really working with them to make sure we're reaching the right people, because we think we can help. There's a huge corporate social responsibility of what we do. We get people out of entry level jobs and improve their earning potential, which is great for the economy, and it also opens up those entry level jobs at the bottom as well for people that want to come into work. So marketing reach is a big challenge as well. And then just supporting our students in terms of technology with learning. So there's a huge debate at the moment of where does AI fit in education? And is this, I was at a conference this week and they talked about it being a slightly unacceptable hack, which I fundamentally disagree with. I think it's a huge supporting tool, especially for some people where, putting something down on paper can be quite hard, but that's got nothing to do with your intellect or your intelligence, and actually perhaps using AI to support you in that way. So thinking about our learning management system and how we work with our partners to deliver the content in the most adaptive manner to ensure that people can learn in an optimum way. So, I suppose in summary, in answer to your question, it's what skills do we need to bring to market? How does the student actually learn? And how do we reach those students? How do we get out there? And so those are probably the big thing, three things on our mind at the moment.
I guess I've got loads of questions for you in a way, but the first one is how do you kind of think about the curriculum itself, right? In terms of like, what do you teach? I suppose that's my first question. I'll start there.
Yeah. So we look to where there are gaps in the talent pipelines. Okay. So what does that actually mean? So we look at where there are many jobs available. We only focus really on the tech sector and
Yeah.
in project management. So two sectors. And what we have a look at is we look at where the jobs are. So we will look at job sites and see where does there seem to be a lot of open roles in technology where clearly industry and organizations are not filling those roles. So when we look at that at the moment, you would see lots of opportunity in data.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have enough data analysts, data scientists? And the reason why that's so important is we all look at thousands of bits of data on a regular basis, and having teams to be able to analyze them is really key. But there is a link between data and analytics and AI. So good data allows us to create some of those AI solutions. So we have in our curriculum over the last 12 months developed a wider curriculum around data. Cyber will always remain number one. At the moment for what we do. And you only look to the press with Marks and Spencer's recently with a significant cyber attack. Having well-trained employees that are managing those cyber risks is key. And there's never enough people trained in those roles. And then we look to the things around cloud and networking and how AI and technology is moving on. And, have you got great teams that can innovate and create new ways of working from a sort of cloud and solutions point of view? So, and in project management, great project leaders are always required. Our business, as I said, is in Australia and New Zealand, and with the Olympics coming up in Australia, we're seeing, a significant increase at the moment in the number of project roles because, more organizations will come together to create the infrastructure to deliver those events. So we look at job availability, where there's a pipeline shortage. That then means that when we're training our students, their likelihood of getting a new job is increased. So we have a stat for you. If our students follow our pipeline, go through all of the phases of career services and our student care support, are dedicated to their studies and pass their exams, we have a 98% employment rate. Yeah, so that means 98% of those students that study with us will find a full-time job in their desired career. They've got to follow the route, and it's not easy, but we do have great success. So we build the curriculum based on job availability, and then we work with our training partners in terms of how do we build that content. So we work with industry recognized providers in terms of accreditation. So whether that's the Association of Project Managers, the Project Management Institute, CompTIA, AWS, Microsoft, Cisco, all of the big certifying. So all of our programs are certified by professional bodies. So that's how we build the curriculum. So it takes a lot of work and quite a big team.
And then my second follow-up, I suppose, and it's sort of like, it's linked to kind of some of what you started to talk about, but how do you then deliver that, in a multimodal,
Yeah.
physical, digital, world that we live
Yeah,
in?
it is. It is. And I think, look, post COVID, I've been learning, as I said, for 30 odd years and, started my career where you were stood in a classroom and, education has not really developed, even in the last, 100, 200 years, has it? You look back to pictures of a classroom in the 1920s and actually you look at children in a classroom today, they're sort of sat in the same position, looking forward at a teacher at the front. So because of what I've explained around how our students are living their lives, they're quite often working and looking after family. They have other commitments. So we can't put them in a classroom, and nor would we want to. So we use something called self-directed learning, which is a mix of e-learning, learning labs. So because of the nature of the technology of what we train, one of the ways for people to really practice these skills is in a technical lab environment. So they'll actually be going in and practicing a bit of coding, doing a practical exercise. So when they're talking to potential employers, they can probably give them some examples of where they've worked in labs. So we use e-learning, we use self-directed learning, we use videos. And the other thing that we do is we do have virtual face-to-face workshops as well, because we do understand that our students, not only do they sometimes want to actually look an expert in the eye, even if it's virtually, and ask that question that they just don't seem to be able to get the answer to by their own studies, but they actually want to hang out with their co-alumni. Yeah, so people that their community of other students that are studying, how are they finding it? What works, what doesn't? So a little bit like we were talking at the start, we do webinars as well, and these are thought leadership webinars. So the technical term for what we do in learning is creating a blended learning approach. So we look at all the different styles of learning, and we try and ensure that our programs cover each of those styles. So some people love to read. There's lots of books and content that we can give you access to. Some people just want to watch and listen. So lots of video content. And then other people want to debate and discuss. And we do that through our live classrooms as well.
Well, I suppose towards the end, and I have to say that 98%, wow, I think many institutions around the world would be very jealous of that stat. It's hugely impressive. Tell me a little bit about kind of then sort of, how you turn that kind of, I suppose, sort of, that theory and sort of, kind of, and sort of learned practice into employment. Tell me about that piece of the pie.
Yeah, so once our students have passed their first exam, they are then passed over into our career services team. And that's a three-phased approach of where we try to really simulate with our students the skills and capabilities that they would first of all need to be able to demonstrate even at interview.
Hmm.
So we have masterclasses where we look at how do you coherently answer questions in an interview. How do you research the sectors that you would be particularly interested in? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? How do you think, I haven't got lots of experience in this world, but I'm qualified and I've got loads of transferable skills. So we focus a lot on transferable skills. So, going back to one of our students, another student could have perhaps come from a career in hospitality, and they might think, well, how do I make the the step across to working in a data role. And actually, one of our students recently has got a job, a data job in Amazon, and didn't come from that tech background. And we really get them to look at your job at the moment and what skills are you using. And we help them then articulate to a potential employer how that would make them as attractive. Because, quite clearly, perhaps they haven't got 5 years experience in cyber or as a project manager, but they have got professional qualifications. They have got transferable skills, and we help them draw those out for interview. Perhaps if they've done a technical qualification, they've spent quite a lot of time in the learning labs and they've perhaps videoed some of their work in the learning labs. But we work with partner employers as well. So we ask them, how do our students get a seat at the table when they don't have 5 years experience? Yeah. You've got a tight pipeline shortage. You haven't got enough candidates for the role that you want to fill. So that tells you that the skills are not out there in abundance. Yeah. So either you build them in your own organization, or one of the things that employers are really starting to do is look at career changers and career starters as a really great source of new labor. So we get people to do work experience, which is there's a lot of. Some of our students may do some volunteering, um, and help them, I guess, really focus on how they're going to land that dream job by giving them some really practical skills. It's not easy, but they do it.
I love the industry. That you've got the professional bodies and the certifications, but then you've got the real world. And the fact that you're bringing the employers to the table. That's a great kind of marriage, I suppose, in a sense. How do you scale that kind of work experience piece with so many people going through your programs?
Yeah. Well, actually, our students do the work.
Right.
So, they're the ones that we'll talk to them about. Tell me the sectors you're interested in, and then we'll help them. And whether it's, looking at using LinkedIn or using their own networks to say, well, how can I get experience in that one sector? So, I'll give you another example. So, we had one of our students who was a teacher. So, had come up through university, done her teacher training for a couple of years, and really got to the stage where I don't know if this is for me. So that's a whole different debate of why we don't keep teachers, but that was her decision. So she retrained with us in project management. And where she lives in the UK, and in fact, her father had worked here, was a major defence contractor, BAE, were recruiting. So she obviously targeted that particular employer as somebody she wanted to work with. And we had worked with BAE as one of our sort of partners. So we could help marry up that. Here's one of my dream employers that I really want to work for, done the right qualifications with us. So we can just help with those introductions. So we do advertise a job board on our Learning People website. So our students can, once they're qualified, they can apply through those jobs. And we just work really hard in the background about trying to find those employers that are really open to using career changers and career starters, and generally people that have upskilled and reskilled and want to take that next level in jobs. So the student does a lot of the work, so they'll identify the sector. We have relationships then with partners that we can do the introduction. And we also encourage them to do their general, job board research. And we coach them as they get through to interview. So if somebody was having an interview next Friday, they would work with our team, perhaps at the beginning of the week. Let's do a dry run. I'm going to ask you some questions. So they turn up, really putting their best foot forward and impressing that potential employer.
And you've talked about cyber, and you've talked about kind of project management, and from a roles perspective, are there particular kind of sectors where there's kind of chronic kind of gaps that sort of to your point around career changing that sort of are really wide open right now?
Yeah, certainly government. So government roles, we see NHS. Where else are students successfully placed? Actually, the construction sector is quite interesting for our project management students. So here's a sector that what are we building another 1.5 billion or whatever it is, new homes that they're building in the UK at the moment. And construction businesses need great project managers. So we've done a little bit of work directly with construction and getting them to open their minds to not just thinking as a graduate is somebody that could take an entry level role. It could actually be somebody that's come up through, I don't know, I may have worked in hospitality, but do you know what? I know how to work to target. I know I can be responsible. I'm trustworthy. I can work in a team. I'm responsible for a workflow every day. And actually, those are great transferable skills. So, construction, definitely from a project management point of view. And then actually retail from a data point of view as well. If you look at, online retailers now, all they're doing is crunching, million bits of data on a daily basis to look at how the consumer is acting. So that's quite a nice sector for our students to go into. But actually, it's not because all organizations need
Yeah,
data,
that's
cyber,
it right there.
project
Horizontal.
managers. Yeah, there's horizontal links in. So, and both large corporates and SMEs as well. So, pretty smart model.
I suppose with your kind of chief learning officer hat on, what are the kind of the real metrics that kind of matter to you,
Yeah.
right? How do you measure success? And you've quoted the 98%, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And then there's a follow-up question, which is basically then with your marketing hat on, I suppose, in a sense, how do you think of what are those marketing metrics that you use? So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, as we've already mentioned, then getting students placed into roles, number one. The second one is the graduation rate. So, we look at the percentage of students who go through their studies and actually successfully graduate. So, that's one of the KPIs that we would look at. A second KPI that I'm particularly responsible for is the cost of product. I mean, it's a commercial business and it's not just, I don't think about it. Clearly, I have profit margins to achieve from a business point of view. But the thing that's on my mind when I'm building our products is it's got to be affordable for these students because this isn't government funded training. It's B2C marketing. People are using their own hard-earned pounds. They're quite often using loans in order to pay for their studies. So I've also got to make sure that the product comes in at a rate which people are going to go, yeah, I can make that work. I'm willing to take a payment loan over a year or perhaps 2 years because when I do get my new job, which my salary could be 20%, 30% higher, I can probably pay the last bit off really quite quickly. And I can afford it through that study period as well. So, placements, graduation rates, affordability, which is linked to our cost of product. And the other big measure for me is student engagement. So we have a number of different metrics. So whether it's looking at our Trustpilot reviews around, it's a great way people now, if they want to look at whether something's good or bad, they'll go and have a look at Trustpilot or Google reviews. So I have and my team have a lot of metrics around, our students saying great things about us. And they're only going to say great things if we deliver great content. So, I will have some markers as well around the percentage of time that our students are engaged in our platform. How much time are they studying? What are the times that they study of the day? What subjects don't get great reviews? Where do we need to talk to our partners to get that content, upgraded? So there's probably 6 or 7 different markers that we use as a business. But our students are our biggest marker. They tell us whether they've enjoyed it or not. They've graduated. They've got a job. That's when you've got. We've got some great studies on our case studies on our website, and when you listen to them, you sleep well at night.
Yeah, I love that point around listening as well. I think it's great. It's and looking, you're not looking for the praise. You're looking for kind of how can we
Yeah.
be better, right? How
Yeah.
do we evolve? And to that point around sort of, I suppose, in a sense, the product and making it sort of as efficient and as effective as it can be. How have you sort of kind of, I suppose, sort of marked your own homework by adopting AI to help you do that?
Yeah, definitely. So we use in one of our platforms, there's an AI tool that's called Casey.
Okay.
And Casey is an augmented avatar type learning tool, which means that you can interact with Casey whilst you're learning. So whether it's a subject around, I don't know, how to deal with a difficult conversation, that you would use Casey to do your learning, and then it would give you some feedback around this was great, but what happens if we said this? So that sort of practical comment that I made earlier that some of our students, because they won't necessarily have had lots of experience, the way they can build their own self-confidence is by interacting with some of the AI that's within our platform. And then also looking at when our students are searching for content, using AI there to make sure that, it's bringing up the most relevant content. And also looking at probably from an evaluation point of view, how AI quickens up some of our review processes in the background. So those are probably very much in how the learning is delivered is how AI is being used. And then, of course, we're using AI in the background as well to do reviews and how content's written. Content with AI now can be produced, 10 times, 100 times quicker than certainly when I started my career, when I would have, someone said, could you write a program on networking?
Hmm.
You would have probably said for every 1 day's learning, you were doing 5 days of design. Well, it's probably 5 seconds now with, what you can do using technology. So it's in the back end, it's in the design process, and it's in the sort of content and the learner experiences where AI is quite prevalent.
And how do you retain that kind of quality? Back to your point, you've got to deliver a quality product to get the quality outcomes you're looking for. How do you maintain that kind of quality when you're going from a 5 day to 5 second
Yeah.
type scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, So all of the content that you would design would go through a full design process. So there's a set of learning principles that you would have to stick with. And, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, learning people work with all of the professional certifying bodies who have very clear objectives and outcomes of what certification looks like. So we have to meet those markers and we have to meet those objectives. So effectively, our students wouldn't pass the exams if the quality wasn't, at the right level. So if somebody's doing one of our partners is CompTIA, if they were doing a Data Plus exam, the quality of the content needs to lead someone to passing. So our pass rates tell us whether, we're not. And that's what I was saying before. Sometimes you'll look to some content and you're saying, oh, that particular content is showing as quite low usage.
Yeah.
Is it because it's too basic, too complex? It's just not needed. So yeah, with our partners, I mean, it's lots of people looking at that. We work with Skillsoft, who's one of the UK's, US largest content providers, and we partner with them. So they've got teams of hundreds looking at that all day, every day.
And I suppose you've got a really good benchmark, right? So you're always looking to improve. So you're starting from that sort of strong base. Let's talk about people for a bit. So again, a bit of a cheeky kind of double-handed question here, but what are the sort of for you? Okay, what do you look for in people? And then I guess from those conversations that you're having, with employers, what are they looking for now?
As I said, I've got a curriculum team and I've got a student care team. And if you imagine the student care team are a little bit like sort of one-to-one coaches that are helping those students. So in my team, it's really important that they're people that are great listeners, great empathy, people that can inspire. And when people are having those really difficult days with their studies, I want to speak to someone that's going to give me that little bit of an extra positive support, conversation that makes me think, do you know what, I am going to go and get I'm going to log on and I'm going to get my virtual book out and I'm going to do some study. So my team is full of people who care. And that's really important. And then my managers have got to be people that can, drive that high standard of student care and sort of customer success,
Hmm.
you might call it in business terms. And then from a curriculum point of view, people that are on the sort of point of what's next, what does good look like from a content point of view, what sort of learning methodologies should we be applying? So again, people technically that are quite knowledgeable around the sectors, from a technology and a project management point of view, my team have got to know their stuff. So yeah, I mean, in my career, I've, always, recruited people that have greater knowledge than me on many subjects. I think that's really important in leadership. You get things done through people and never be afraid of somebody that's way smarter than you. It's about how you channel that smartness. And I'm a huge fan of managing by objectives. I always think, if I ask my team, what pinnacle, what's at the top of the mountain, what are we trying to get to? Are we all aligned? They may traverse up the mountain slightly different ways. That's okay. But let's just make sure that we meet at the summit at the right time. So yeah, making sure that people are really clear with their objectives, and I love having fun with the team as well. That's I think work goes a lot quicker, and people's engagement and motivation.
Give me an example of having fun.
Oh, we went. What did we do recently? I mean, it's sort of a bit cliche, isn't it? But we did a sort of start of the spring sort of bowling trip,
Yep.
which lots of teams do, and started with a lovely lunch. But actually, nowadays, you don't get a chance just to sit and talk. Interesting, learning people is 100% office based, which actually makes us quite unique in today's world. So we do see each other every day, but actually, we never get a chance to really talk. So we had a great lunch. Our office in the UK is based near Brighton, so on the seafront.
Lovely.
We had a lovely lunch, and then we went on to play We went on to do bowling, which was great fun. And actually, the team just found it hilarious that, Director of Education, Chief Learning Officer Rachel needed the guardrails up in order to for any of those annoying skittles to fall over was the only way that we did it. So I think I gave my team quite a big laugh that day. It's actually my rubbish bowling skills. So we do bowling. We have a summer event. So we've got that coming up. We do like a sort of old fashioned school sports day, which is fun. And yeah, just taking time out to listen to what's going on in people's lives apart from the day job. And then, yeah, last year I did a great trip to Australia and New Zealand to catch up with my teams over there as well. And it was great to see how they do their team building. So I think we did some escape rooms and stuff like that as well. And super smart people in escape rooms are always quite good fun because you tend to get out quite quickly. So we did that too.
How do you connect up those cultures when you're operating at such extreme time zones and distance?
Yeah, a very long day for me could be a starting conversation with the Australian team, spending all day in Hove, and then an evening call with the New Zealand team. So you do have to schedule your day. Um, because I've worked globally before, I've sort of always tried to work by a set of standards. The idea at organizational level is that everything is the same. Hey, wouldn't that be amazing? But cultural diversity of our students, our employees is different. Even though there's many similarities between the Australia and New Zealand team and the UK team, actually the way we work is different. And what's really important for me, as I try to do from a leadership point of view, is have an 80-20 rule. So 80% of what we do really should be global processes because that's about efficiency and effectiveness. And we're a business, we are one, we're not two businesses. We need to do that. But I totally accept that 20% we will adjust for localization. So there could be some things that we do quite differently with our students in Australia and New Zealand than we do with our students in the UK. And in fact, our students tend to be global.
Hmm.
They're not all English, background people, nor are they all Aussies or Kiwis. It's quite a global student base. But it's amazing actually how the culture can cause divide. And certainly from a leadership point of view, we have to work really, really hard. And I own the curriculum and I'm the sort of person that would be like, okay, so this is what we've agreed. This is the pricing structure. This is the content. And then I'm like, hang on a minute, why is that snuck into that particular on both sides of the fence as well? So, but that's about me being flexible. And, ultimately it's what's right for the students. So, that our UK students do want things differently than perhaps
Yeah.
the Australian
Give me an
students
example
do.
of some of those little nuancy kind of differences between Aussies, Kiwis, and Brits on the
Yeah,
basis that we are very much a global world and multicultural and so forth.
I think it's our UK the students that are looked after by our UK team um, are the number of certifications they have. They're sort of really quite satisfied with perhaps three. They think that feels like it's enough to go into industry, and that means enough to them. So it's much more around the the quality of the studying they're doing, and that's really important. But actually, in our Australian and New Zealand students, actually, the more qualifications, the better. So quite often they want to fill up, we call them learning pathways. So our pathways are a mix of all of our courses curated together to help those people find those dream jobs. And actually Australia and New Zealand, they like to have as many as possible, which I'm all for as long as they can complete all the study. I think there's studying is actually quite similar.
Mm.
Our students all like a mix of self-directed. Everybody likes a bit of face to face. The Australia and New Zealand team, they like a local voice. So if we're doing a webinar or a bit of content, if it can have an accent from Australia and New Zealand, then that helps them as well. But we're a global business. Industry is global now. I mean, not everything is going to be in English. And actually, a lot of our content sometimes has an American voice. So, yeah, it's probably more around just how my individual teams want to operate than actually the product. But there are differences in the product.
Okay, so look, going back to Rachel, when you didn't go to university and you went to take on that incredible tour operated role, traveling the world, what's that one piece of advice that you'd give to Rachel entering the industry today?
just remember it, what's at the heart of what you do when you work in education. And I really believe it's about, it sounds really cliche and rather large, but you can really make someone's life great if you give them education and allow them to go on and whatever their dream job is, whether I am going to be a landscape gardener or a SOC analyst or, a ballet dancer or a chief learning officer. So I think I'd give, Rachel the advice of, stick with that sector because you're passionate about it. And I think if you're passionate about something, um, you can be quite good at it as well.
All right, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions.
Oh,
Okay. Are
okay.
you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right.
Braced.
Okay. If you could instantly download any skill into your brain, kind of like the Matrix, what would it be?
To be able to play the piano. Would love it. I admire anybody that can go in a bar and there's an empty piano, or if you go in, I don't know, a railway station and people can just sit. How do I get that skill to read music, to play a beautiful piece of music? Please, I'd love to know.
I love that. That's a great answer. Okay, you're flying, riding, driving. Who's your dream passenger?
Do you know what? My husband. We've been together for 35 years. It's been a roller coaster, but we've had a laugh. It'd be good to have him by my side.
I hope he's listening to this.
Yeah, you should be very impressed.
What's the one piece of tech from sci-fi that you wish existed today?
I can't remember what it's called. What was in Back to the Future, what was the car called?
The DeLorean.
DeLorean.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea of that because you can go back or forward, which is quite interesting. So nice to look at a bit of history, but you can come back to where you started. So that would be quite an interesting one for me.
That's actually quite a nice link to my next one, which is, and for someone who's traveled the world, so teleportation becomes real. Where would you go and what would you take?
I'd get back to 1970, the year I was born.
And what would you take with you?
I would just take all the experience over the last 50 odd years and go and do it all again. I think I would probably take a little bit more, self-confidence. If I could pack that in my bag, I would, just be braced and ready to do the ride again. Wouldn't it be amazing to go back? I'd love to do it all again.
Back to the 70s.
Back to the 70s.
I like that. Ultimate driving song?
Top Loader. Dancing on the in the moonlight.
In the moonlight.
Yes, dancing in the moonlight. Probably would be my, roof off on my car, really, really loud.
And a Marvel superpower you'd love to have?
Invisibility would be quite fun for a while, wouldn't it?
It would.
Just for a while, to observe things, get into places where people can't see you.
What's going on in that learning lab?
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Rachel, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you very much.
It's been great.